can go into effect. This has been a very divisive issue. I want to get reaction right now from Kentucky Republican Senator Rand Paul. So much to go into you about, Senator. So if you don't mind my hitting you broadside with this late-breaking development. But the court there effectively saying that the governor can go ahead and do what he's doing, and in this case, crack down on collective bargaining. What do you make of that and the implications of this?
Well, I think it's a blow for the rule of law. Basically, the governor and the majority of the legislature have decided that there need to be some limitations on collective bargaining. Interesting for government employees. Interestingly, this is what FDR said for federal employees. No collective bargaining, basically, for federal employees. So I think this is a blow for
well, to be clear,
fiscal
Senator,
sanity.
maybe I wasn't clear in describing it. The court has vindicated the governor. In other words, the court is saying that his act can go through, that Scott Walker, the governor, who pushed this move to eliminate public employees' collective bargaining rights, is within his rights and powers doing so. So I'm sorry if I wasn't clear.
I think that,
Do you agree with that?
I think yes, the decision is a good decision, and I think validates the rule of law. And it also shows that states are going to need to have these tools in order to become fiscally responsible and balance their budgets. We had discussions today with how bad things are in Illinois. There is worry about Illinois declaring bankruptcy, California possibly also. So these states are going to have to come up with creative solutions, and I'm glad that the court has upheld Governor Walker's law.
You know, it's interesting, Senator, all of this coming on the same day we've been hearing this court case that Peter Barnes outlined going on in Seattle, deciding whether Boeing has the right to go to a right-to-work state and hire 1,000 folks. What's your position on this?
Well, I think it's an example of the president really showing a recklessness and a lawlessness and maybe even a bully nature, that basically he's going to bully states that are right to work. He's going to bully non-union workers. He's going to say that a union job is more important than a non-union job. So I find it really a dangerous precedent. I've actually filed Freedom of Information Acts. I want to know if the NLRB, which is supposed to be an independent organization, I want to know if they've had any meetings at the White House. I also want to know if the Machinists Union has been at the White House, how often and what the discussions have been about. I want to know if the White House has been over to the NLRB. If this is not an independent situation and there's been any collusion between these parties, then I think it's really a serious offense.
So you think if you can prove either fingerprints or connection directly between the White House and the NLRB, this is a lot stickier than just whether a company can expand shop in another state?
Well, see, I want to know if this is about politics. Is he doing this to reward supporters and punish people who are against him? South Carolina is a Republican state with 2 Republican senators. It's a right-to-work state. Is the president going to be so much of a lawlessness or so much of a disbeliever in the rule of law that he's going to use the bully nature of government to punish his enemies and help his friends? I think that, if that's true, is really, really troubling.
What do you think the message will be for other companies, though, Senator, if they get wind of just Boeing's difficulties in trying to expand, in this case, to a right-to-work state? And whatever the merits of the argument, you know, a lot of CEOs, as you know, Senator, are averse to any sort of controversy. They'll just say, the heck with it. Next time I want to expand, I'll just go to Asia or Latin America or wherever.
Well, the one thing that these politicians don't understand is that capital is mobile. It goes from country to country, and capital tends to go to the countries that have the lower taxes and less regulation. And if they make it this hard to locate in a non-union state, it also means they won't go to the union states. They won't go to non-union. They will go overseas, or they may begin their companies to begin with in non-union states and never go to the union states if they're going to punish them for relocating or expanding into non-union states. This is really bad policy, even for those states that have unions.
You know, it is a weird kind of a day, you know, Senator. I mean, I told you about the Wisconsin developments here where unions, at least at this point, seem to have lost a crucial battle. They wanted to have this thing slapped down there. It does not appear to be the case. And now what could be an uphill battle, all the arguments notwithstanding, on the part of the NLRB to reverse this move on Boeing's part. But it is like unions' last hurrah. Is it your sense that that's what's going on here? They're throwing all the weapons they can to stop what seems like an inevitable decline.
The bottom line is it's becoming more and more difficult for them to justify why government workers' pensions should be better than private workers' pensions, why government security in their jobs should be better than private security. I mean, we have 10% unemployment across our country, and people are suffering, and they wonder why a government worker that works half as hard sometimes is getting twice as much. So really, there are a lot of problems. Our states are short of money. Our country's short of money. Really, everybody's going to have to come together. It doesn't have to be us against the unions, but it has to be the unions need to acknowledge they're being paid often total compensation twice as much as private workers. It can't go on because we're out of money as a country, and I'm worried about the future of our country because of the debt that looms over us.
Given that concern, I know you have your own interests and biases here, and that would be understandable with your father running for president. But I talked to Rick Perry earlier today, the Texas governor. We're going to have a little bit of that later in the show. But he's teasing the presidential waters. Many are rumored to be following him. The former governor of Utah, Governor Huntsman, our ambassador to China. And they almost seem to be saying that the group in which your dad is included just ain't cutting it. They're looking outside. Are you frustrated? Is your dad frustrated? What?
Well, I think the primary process always winnows out who the best candidate is, and you don't always know who it is in the beginning. But I think as you see the debates go on, you will see who the Republican Party thinks can best lead them. And I think the interesting thing about my dad is that you're seeing the country move in his direction. You're seeing much more talk up here about less intervention overseas, that we can't afford it. You're seeing more talk about the Constitution. I've been talking about in the Senate how the Congress is supposed to authorize going to war. That's what the Constitution says. And we've got at least a third to a half of the Republican caucus who's interested in that now. And before I came and before my dad made these ideas a part of the national debate, you weren't hearing it all. So I think he is winning the ideas debate.
Well, I think his son's helping that argument. Rand Paul, always good having you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Neil.
Well, he supported the